The Denver Nuggets are a team that I have been waiting on for the longest time, not from an organizational standpoint because they've actually done a pretty bang-up job, but from a health standpoint. But with the return of Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. on the horizon, combined with the great offseason that they just had, this might finally be the year that the Nuggets put it together. Is this going to be the year where the Nuggets finally reach their fullest potential and maybe even win a championship? Let's talk about it, and of course, let's do so, because it's Monday, with the help of my good friend Alex Hoops and his film breakdowns. Before I continue on with this video, if you end up enjoying this video, then please be sure to subscribe. Also, go subscribe to Alex's channel because this is a collaboration video, and drop a like to help it do better in the YouTube algorithm. In order to properly encapsulate what the Denver Nuggets might end up being, we have to look at both the potential that they have shown before, as well as what their new additions might be able to contribute within that previously established system.
Let's start off with their first two major acquisitions, the first one being caldwell-pope. KCP is really the perfect player for an offense led by Nikola Jokic. Jokic is really good at setting up guys for easy shots off of dribble handoffs, and KCP is a 47% shooter from beyond the arc when he's coming off of a screen. Defending the two-man game between these two is going to be incredibly frustrating if you're the opposing defense. He shot 39% from 3 on 5.9 attempts per game. The Nuggets didn't have anybody shooting higher than 36% from 3 on over 5 attempts per game, so he's going to inject elite perimeter shooting into their lineup from day one. And that doesn't even mention the really solid perimeter defense that KCP provides. It's no secret that this is something the Nuggets were really lacking during the playoffs, so he's going to help them immensely in this area. Now on to Bruce Brown. Bruce Brown was really solid during his time in Brooklyn, being one of their best rotational players. To be completely honest, Steve Nash probably didn't make use of him in a way that really maximizes what he brings to the table. The fact that the Nuggets were able to snag him on the contract that they did is an absolute steal. He's going to be able to be an impactful contributor on both the offensive and defensive end from day one. For only $13 million over the next 2 years, he's going to be immensely valuable to them. Bruce Brown is one of those guys whose box score stats aren't really going to be dropping any jaws, but the proof is in the film. He's a very engaged defender, and despite being only 6'4", he plays a lot bigger than he actually is, and he makes up for his lack of height at the forward position with his tenacity and hustle. He's one of those guys that you'd hate to be guarded by and pick up because he just doesn't give you any space at all. Brown is such an interesting player because he doesn't play like a 6'4" guy. His 6'9" wingspan allows him to hold his own against forwards in the paint and deter shots at the rim, so much so that players shoot 3.3% worse at the rim than their expected field goal percentage when they're being guarded by him. And there's a lot more than meets the eye when it comes to what he brings to the table on offense. Something that I came across that just felt so bizarre to me is that Bruce Brown was in the 97th percentile in points per possession as the pick and roll ball handler this year. He really didn't get to show his offensive skill set too much in Brooklyn, likely a byproduct of playing alongside Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, but he's a fantastic two-way role player to have on such a cheap contract. He also shot 40.7% on catch and shoot threes this year on top of all of this, even though it was on limited volume. I can't think of a more perfect player to put into a Nikola Jokic-led offense. His screening with Jokic is going to create mismatch hell for opposing defenses. He'll be able to hit shots off of the catch, and he's shown some really promising playmaking chops as well. But perhaps the most valuable thing that he brings to the table on the offensive end, as it pertains to his fit with Jokic, is his cutting ability. Brown is a superb cutter, knowing exactly when to make a move to the basket when his teammates are getting trapped. Here, Kevin Durant is up at the elbow, and the Knicks are going to swarm him. Brown is over on the wing, and when Evan Fournier ditches him to help, Brown immediately cuts to the basket for Kevin Durant to find him for the floater over Julius Randle.
Both him and KCP will do fine on the offensive end of the floor, and then defensively, they're really gonna ramp up that perimeter D. What they gave up in depth with both Monte Morris and Will Barton's departure, they more than made up for with two players who frankly fit the system better because they're better defensive players and they're not gonna take shots away from that big three. They should fit in seamlessly with Jokic, Murray, and Porter Jr. But there's a lot more to look at than just simply their new additions and this big three. There is also Bones Hyland. He is coming off of a really good rookie season, and with them departing with Monte Morris, it's very clear that they expect him to take up that role. That is a bit of a risk, given that we've only seen a little bit from him and just his rookie season so far. However, I personally believe that he's going to be fully capable of doing it, and he's actually going to surprise a few people.
Now, his perimeter shooting is the immediate draw when you look at the numbers. 36.6% on 5.2 attempts per game is really solid stuff, especially from a rookie. His shooting off of screens is really exciting, averaging 1.7 points per possession off of screens during his rookie season. He's one of those guys who's just unstoppable when he's coming off of pin downs. I really think we've only seen the beginning of what he's going to be capable of as a movement shooter, and for all the hype that his perimeter shooting ability gets, he also shot 69% at the rim this season. That's some really nice efficiency. He's a really great defender as well, just super pesky and bothersome. Like Bruce Brown, he's another one of those guys who just doesn't make anything easy for you if he's guarding you. He's got lightning fast hands, and even when he gets beat off of screens, he's fast enough that it doesn't offer any security for the guy who's coming off of the screen. Like here, the Grizzlies are going to run a screen up top for Brooks to get the ball, and even though Bones is going to get caught up in the screen, he's still going to come up behind Brooks and get up into his space to snag a steal. And here he's going to get caught up in the staggered screen, and he's going to keep tracking the ball and come over to provide help and contest the shot at the rim and force the miss. I'm also expecting a pretty significant playmaking leap from him next season. He showed a lot of flashes of his floor vision and what he's capable of when he's in charge of running the offense, and giving him the keys to run the offense during the non-Jokic and Murray minutes is going to do wonders for his development while also being conducive to winning games. He's a really solid slasher to the basket, and he does a good job of forcing defenses to collapse on him so he can find open men on the perimeter. And he's also really capable as a pick and roll ball handler, being able to make some really flashy passes due to his ability to seek out unorthodox passing lanes and exploit small holes in the defense. He's got really tight ball handling ability, and I expect him to really start to show that more next season as he gets a little bit more comfortable both in the offense and just playing in the NBA.
The amount of firepower he's going to bring to this team is going to be integral to replacing the shot creation off of the bench of Monte Morris. Now on to the really fun and most important parts, and that is the return of both Michael Porter Jr. and Jamal Murray. It was really easy to see how much the Nuggets needed these two guys in the playoffs this year, because as good as Nikola Jokic is, to say that he did everything for Denver would be an understatement, and as good as he is, wasn't going to work with just him alone. These two are going to alleviate pressure, and the system that the Nuggets can potentially run here, I honestly think is so good that they could be the #1 offense in basketball.
Jokic is finally going to have somebody to run the pick and roll with again. Jamal Murray has enough scoring gravity that defenses aren't going to be able to devote all of their attention just to Nikola Jokic anymore. They're going to have to guard Murray now too. He shot 39% on pull-up threes in the 2020 through 2021 season. This perimeter gravity is going to allow Jokic to really leverage his ability as a roll man and make life really easy for Murray in regards to connecting with him on the roll. He's also just another perimeter defender to welcome back to a team that really struggled to guard guys behind the arc. I'm not sure exactly what their starting lineup is going to look like, but defensively, the backcourt minutes of him and Bones Hyland together is going to be a massive help. Even though both of them are relatively undersized guards, their perimeter defense is good enough that these two could have a lot of success guarding opposing teams' guard duos. And of course, we have Michael Porter Jr. coming back to the team. In the 2020 through 2021 playoffs, he averaged 17.4 points and 6 rebounds per game on 60% true shooting. It really felt like he was starting to come into his own as a player, and then of course the injury hampered what would have been a breakout season for him. It really can't be emphasized enough how well Jokic and MPJ play off of one another. Jokic is obviously a 7-footer with just an absurd offensive arsenal, and Michael Porter Jr. is so good at maximizing Jokic's strengths and vice versa. MPJ is great at knocking down shots off of Jokic's screens, and his size and athleticism make him a really difficult player to contain when he doesn't have the ball in his hand. Like here, Jokic is going to drive down the middle, and McDaniels and McLaughlin are going to have a defensive lapse, and both will go out to the perimeter. Michael Porter Jr. just slides right under the basket to get an easy pass from Jokic for the dunk. Here, Porter Jr. has it in the corner, and he's going to attack the interior. But he draws so much defensive attention that Jokic is left right under the basket, and Porter Jr. finds him for the easy layup. Here, Michael Porter Jr. is up at the top with the ball, and Monte Morris is actually going to come and set a pin down for Jokic. And Michael Porter Jr. is going to find him in the mid-range for Jokic to fake the drive and put up an easy pull-up.
These two are really bizarre players who are both like 6'10 guys with like not necessarily normal skill sets, but they mesh together just flawlessly. And it's like my favorite two-man game in all of basketball. Trying to defend those two along with Jamal Murray and the two-man game he has with Jokic as well is just like a Herculean task. Even with just these three, there's very few teams that are capable of defending this team. Now add on the additions they've had to round out that team, and there's going to be very few teams capable of beating this team when fully healthy. You're really just going to have to pray that you can outscore them, and that's not going to be an easy feat. Whether or not this is a big year for this Nuggets team is going to be entirely dependent on health, because just looking at what they have on paper, there are very few teams that can compete with the level of talent that the Nuggets have, combined with the perfect fit that they have. But again, shout out to Alex for working on this video and doing most of this video. I mean, this is his series, you get that. Appreciate him, and that's it. Goodbye.